I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call. We have. Okay. Chris,
Here.
Randy, Kaiser. He's not here. Dan, Mercy.
Here.
Scott,
Here. Here, can you hear me?
okay, so we've got, to approve agenda. There's one thing on the agenda that we want to change. Can we get a,
I'll move that we move the briefing of the police chief into first position.
to the A spot and, okay,
Second.
all in favor? Motion that it's approved, so that's gonna him up. Okay, everybody has viewed and seen our minutes, the June 22nd meeting. Everybody in favor of approving?
I've not seen that.
Sure didn't.
I missed.
I can forward them to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and we have guests today. You're,
Jack Pure.
okay. And what's our pleasure for having you here today with us?
This is wanted to see what was going on.
Okay,
Jack's been watching roads for 25 years.
okay. Okay. Comments, questions, committee audience, that was there. Okay, A on our agenda is gonna be chief. You can have the floor. For questions and.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here. Appreciate the invite. Roads and infrastructure is extremely important in this village, as it is in most places. I'll speak a little bit about the one particular topic that was brought to my attention, and that is speed signs, speed trailer, speed vans, mobile and so forth. And then I'll stand for questions and discussion regarding other problems or concerns or anything that's going on here within the village. Speed signs. And all of these come with the cost. The village doesn't currently own any speed signs or trailers or mobile vehicle, other than our assigned patrol units that have radar capability, that could actually issue a citation either as a criminal violation if it's observed by a police officer, or as a civil violation, like I'm sure you've read about in larger cities. Rio Rancho is one that seems to always make the headlines on Albuquerque news stations about their civil citations and so forth for that. So a little bit of a background on what is criminal, what is civil. So criminal would mean that it can count as points against your license. It's a criminal act in the traffic world. Just like driving without insurance would be, speeding, of course, driving on an expired license, equipment violations, headlights don't work, taillights don't work, busted out windshield, missing your mirrors, anything like that is a traffic misdemeanor, if you will. And that's set by state statute under the Uniform Traffic Code, which is what's adopted by all municipalities. Now, in addition to the uniform traffic code that the state and the New Mexico Municipal League, as well as the Association of Counties, puts out to all local governments across the state. A village can adopt by ordinance other criminal or civil violations. And a good example of that might be, let's think about our trash collection sites. Littering or putting an oversized or forbidden object in a dumpster, such as a refrigerator, small refrigerator or freezer or something. We do have ordinances against things like that. Signs, you can't place a sign without a permit, sandwich board temporary signs on the sidewalk. That would obstruct handicap or pedestrian movement, things like that. We can adopt ordinances on that, and the village has by and large. Now, for the part about speeding zones, we could adopt a civil code, if you will, for speeding violations to be monitored by unmanned, either signs or trailers, or even speed vans as they're commonly known. So a speed sign, everybody know what I'm talking about? Little things, they're yay high. Sometimes they sit on a post and have a solar panel for the battery supply. Others are more portable, where you can either swap out the battery packs or bring it in, plug it in, charge it, things like that. A good example is one that just went in over at Eagle Nest. If anybody's seen that, it's on a pole and has a solar panel. Now, those, they don't generate or capture data from passing vehicles. They only flash your speed. And there is no consequence if you're in a 35 zone and that thing flashes 50, it's just gonna flash at you and say, slow down. It has no mechanism of capturing a license plate or any vehicle driver facial recognition or anything like that whatsoever. Are they good? In my opinion, they might have their place if we were doing a speed run up on the ski area and we wanted to know who's the fastest skier for today. It will tell us that information. In my experience, I got some of those when I was the chief over in Red River many years ago. And within weeks, the word was out, I got it up to 72 miles an hour last night and things like that. So it became a challenge to mostly teenagers, but I'm not targeting any specific group. Although when I was a teenager, I might have been tempted to try that myself, just to see how fast my Honda 250 would go. So those are one thing. Those started around $5,000 and up, depending on what accessories and battery life and additional battery packs and solar panels and things that you would want to get for those. The trailers, which you kind of see more, they're still very portable. You see those in construction zones more so than the ones on the stands or poles. They may or may not have data capturing capability. These started around $40,000 for ones that don't have anything more than a speed registry. But what do you normally see with those? If you've ever traveled through Texas and Oklahoma, usually within about a block of those, I see a highway patrolman hiding, reading that sign and seeing, and then they are using that data from a certified radar to issue a traffic citation violation. They're pretty good. They can be moved from different locations very easily, whereas ones on a pole can't, but they are much more costly.
Do those shoot a picture of the driver in the seat for?
Some will, not the $40,000 model, but you can get the higher end models that do have the ability, like ones in Rio Rancho, big cities, to capture red light cameras, things like that. They shoot a picture of the license plate. They shoot a picture of the driver from different angles. Yeah. Now, what does Texas have that we don't? Front license plates. So for New Mexico, if we had front license plates, you could capture that all in 2 shots. One of the vehicle plate and then one of the driver from a closer view. We don't have that. They're not as effective in the single license plate states as they are in others. And then to get the vans that are, you know, extremely portable, we could drive those and park them anywhere. They run off of the vehicle's electrical system. We can move them from place to place. Though the cost of those starts at about $100,000 and goes up. So this is kind of the three most common options. Now, there's some LiDAR things, there's aircrafts, there's things like that that I will be totally honest with you, I've never had any experience with, never worked with, and don't really know what the cost of one of those would be, but I think it would be pretty expensive for anything like that. So that's kind of the ranges, and I know the committee has had discussions. I know I get phone calls at my office from time to time of speeders and complaints. It's good that Kurt's here today because we've had much discussions about this and kind of an ongoing joke. He goes out and blades the roads, makes them smooth. I get speeding complaints. He misses a week or so in there and they get little washboards. He gets complaints that the roads are rough. I don't get any speeding complaints because people have to slow down. So, you know, it's kind of one of those back and forth things between Kurt and I. If I had my preference, I'd leave them a little bit rough. Just for that. And of course, dust, dust from trucks pulling trailers, the more tires and wheels you have traveling on that, the more dust that's created versus a small motorcycle. For this committee's information, I get very few complaints about the side-by-sides and four-wheelers. And as you know, Angel Fire does have a local ordinance allowing the operations on any roadway or street, paved or unpaved, within the village limits, with the exception of Highway 434 or the little section of 64 that we have jurisdiction on. We're working with DOT, have been for a couple of years. We just recently had a speed study, which I'm sure a safety study for the corridor of 434 from 64 out to Forest Road 76. We're trying to get the 7.5 miles through the village and that little bit that extends into the county, get them to look at that for operations. Could that change if we do allow that? It could. And like I've told the mayor, the manager, and DOT, and I'll tell you in this meeting, if that becomes problematic, I will be the first one to step in and say we need to repeal our ordinance allowing that because of safety, health, and welfare concerns. If I start seeing a lot of crashes involving ROVs or children or stop signs, things like that, or probably stop signs isn't the best example because there are none on 434 currently, but crosswalks and things like that. It's not a secret, us from Oklahoma or Texas don't see a whole lot of crosswalks in our towns or, on the roadways as much as we do like here in the village and stuff. So speeding complaints, I'm very aware of it. We do our best to be up on the back roads. Via Del Rey, where there's a lot of construction going on, is one. El Camino Real is another one, all the way up into the Pamarana area. A lot of construction trucks moving around in there, concrete trucks. Of course, we don't see those speeding uphill as much as we do coming downhill, but when we're out there, we do write citations for that with some frequency. Obviously, if you do a traffic count study, which I've done informally, and essentially all that is you set at a given location and you count the number of cars per minute that pass by. You can be on El Camino Real and go as much as 3.5 minutes with no traffic, and then you might have 3 or 4 vehicles. Converse to that is our main highway, main artery through town. On a busy day, you can have 7 to 8 cars per minute on any given day, and at an extreme busy time, you can be in the 20s for that.
Can you monitor that with like a camera versus the air pipes or the air tubes on the road to monitor speed?
To monitor speed?
Yeah, because I noticed
Just
sometimes
picture-
you'll see where they'll have the air.
Oh, the counters?
Yeah, on the road itself.
I don't have the ability to do that. DOT would and does. And the company that we contracted with to do our safety study for the corridor 434 did do a speed study and had those, what you call them, air tubes, the traffic counters, and they also monitor speed because they're set a given distance apart and they know how many seconds from this put into that one determines speeds. So they did do that. I'm very happy to report, if you haven't heard about that, the one that they set just north of us up here a little bit, essentially our speeds were at the speed limit or below. The one at Country Club Drive, the traffic that was continuous, meaning passing back and forth, not slowing down to turn onto Country Club, was slightly above the posted speed limit. I think it came in at like 3 miles per hour over the posted limit, which is, I thought, a very reasonable number. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you folks, I don't stop somebody for 5 over. It's usually more than that before I stop somebody, and even then, at 9 or 10, they're gonna probably get a warning as long as they have insurance and a valid driver's license and we're wearing their seatbelts. The one out closer to Forest Road 76, which was just outside of our village limits, that speed indication came in at like 8 to 9 miles an hour above the posted speed limit. There was some peak times in there that it was over 10, but there were other times that it was much less than that. But just about every vehicle that registered was either at or slightly above the speed limit outside of town. So I don't know what DOT is gonna think of that. I gotta believe that we can argue, well, the other two were very favorable to us, and our crash data had reduced from the last 5 years from just on this highway corridor from 15 crashes to 7. So that's a significant reduction. Of those 7, guess what the number 1 cause was? Deer, animals. So some of our higher areas of crash potential where speed is the contributing factor is like Via Del Rey, where you have the sharp hairpin curves or a little bit of washboard and they slide off to the side. 0 fatalities in that 5-year study as well. So I'm very proud of that. So that's a little bit about the speeding, the signs. I have nothing budgeted this year in my budget to purchase any type of a speed monitoring device. But if it's the will of this committee and this committee takes it to council and I'm directed to do that, I'm very open to.
One issue that we have had on our desk here is trying to figure out how we can't set some kind of a system up on some of these roads like El Camino Real, Valle Grande, Spyglass, some of our main arterial roads to monitor those speeds. So even if the sign says speeds are monitored by video, just to plant that seed that there is maybe a camera looking at them, if that wouldn't bring those speeds down a little bit, because Kurt's biggest problem he has is washboards created by speed, dust created by speed, more so than probably anything else. It's like Kurt said, a car going 15 miles an hour is going to create a lot less dust than a car going 45. And then the safety factor. But we were trying to think of ways that maybe there can't be cameras on some of these roads with the sign just saying speeds are monitored by video to plant that seed that they're being watched. And if so, if it does click a shot of a license plate, you have record of it. And like we said, Kurt said, there's no way that you have the manpower to go try to enforce the speeds on all the roads, the 120 miles of roads that we have in this village. You know, so if there's a way that we can't set some kind of an image that we're watching on, just any way to try to plant the seed that they need to slow down because we're watching them. I don't know if there's an inexpensive way to do that. And that was something our committee would be interested in because
So,
that's one thing that's higher on our priorities.
so again, the low cost, speed signs, they don't capture data.
Right.
They don't, that wouldn't be something that I could, well, nowadays you can remote log into it. The ones that I had in Red River, you had to pull the box and go plug it in your computer to read the data from it, kind of like an old school game camera, if you will.
Yeah.
So these won't have that ability. All they're gonna do is show the speed, and if it's set above, if the speed is, if it's a 35 zone and you set the parameter at 45, it's gonna flash slow down.
And that's a $5,000 sign.
At the lowest price ones are gonna start at about that.
And one to show the speed.
Yeah, so the ones in Eagle Nest, they do collect data, like if there's 20 cars that come by at 45 miles per hour, it collects that data and you have to download it and you can set quite a bit of parameters. I mean, it's pretty complex. So they don't have any of that set. They just put them out there. But there is a lot of parameters that you can put on there. But the other thing too is that, I mean, I worked at the mine in Cuesta and we had those signs on the mine haul roads up there because our haul trucks were going too fast. And we collected a ton of data on them. But the other thing is you can turn them off after like 8 o'clock if the racing thing, because I don't know if, you know, before the sun goes down, if the trying to get them up to 100 miles an hour, I mean, I can see that as a huge problem. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, you have your own private radar.
But there's, I mean, depending on which model you get, and I am kind of familiar with the ones in Eagle Nest, and there's a ton of parameters that they can set, and they haven't
So-
set any yet.
I recently just saw those and I haven't talked to Veronica from DOT. Did DOT actually pay for those and put those in? Or did the village?
Village of Eagle Nest actually purchased them. I think there's 3 of
And
them.
then they just have to get permission
Yeah,
for
they-
highway right of way use.
Yeah.
We'd have to do the same.
And they've had them for almost 4 months, I think. And the post cost almost as much as the sign cost.
So one other thing I just wanted to mention, we do have flock, license plate readers, at different places within the village. Those cameras do not capture any speed data or facial recognition at all. That gets very costly. Ours are only, if we have, as an example, a hit and run from Lowe's parking lot, and they said it went southbound. Our camera at South Angel Fire Road, we can log in, you can use vehicle descriptors. We know it was a black SUV, white plate, so probably Texas. I'm gonna look for first on that. And if we capture something that matches that description, we can also put in some other, parameters, if you will. It had a window decal, something like that. We can search that way.
So we had a problem with people shooting the signs up there, so we, can't remember what the name of the system was, but it was similar. We didn't have very good luck with it.
On the mine?
While we were working there, they were shooting into the mine. So,
That's restricted access up there. So that,
Yeah.
yeah,
so.
that narrows it down.
Yeah, well, no, it was up from the highway,
Oh, from the highway.
right in front of the water treatment plant there. But our system that we had there, we never had good luck with it of identifying anything in the local,
Yeah.
it was a Red River system, I believe, actually.
You know, and then I failed to mention, you know, what the numbers I'm telling you, the cost are initial cost. And then there's, recertification fees and other things that would be a yearly cost to that as well. It wouldn't take many of these to equal the cost of me getting another police officer. That could fill a much greater role than just speed problems that we have here in the village. But I am very open to any ideas. You won't find resistance from any. If you want to put up just a sign that says speed monitored by radar, those would probably be what, $3 a piece or less,
Yeah.
and a post and an hour's worth of time.
I
It
think
might
that-
be some kind of a deterrent for a little bit, but people are gonna figure it out.
I think one of the things you brought up last time when we discussed this a little bit is that see the people, construction workers, others that drive the roads all the time. They're communicating with each other as one of the policemen is down, sitting kind of with the radar at certain parts, they were pulling each other and slowing down. And so if you've got a sign that's in the same place all the time, that's something like that. It's hard to say that it's gonna do much.
I don't know how effective that's gonna be. But what you just said is exactly right. I stopped a construction worker and was issuing the citation. And when I walked back up to the pickup, he was on the phone telling his workers to slow down. I just got a ticket. So that is a very true example of what you just gave.
And that's gonna be worse if it's just a sign that's sitting there because the low nothing's happening for it.
Perhaps we would need to be able to coordinate it so we could have an officer there periodically near that sign, so they're seeing marked patrol units. San Mateo, was where the pavement is, well, the pavement's 15 miles an hour, and then you hit the dirt and it's 25. Which Kurt and I've had this discussion or talked a little bit, and honestly, I feel like that's backwards. The paved road is safer, but it is a downhill descent, so I get that, part of it as well. I went as far as to park, one of our loaner units up there. I did leave the radar on that unit, but it wasn't probably until the end of the day, people had already figured out nobody's in it. I'm happy to answer more questions or be open to another meeting, more discussions, more whatever you decide to do to go up the chain to the council.
One other thing that we had discussed, and it's something that I really kind of lived with in Pagosa during dirt work and roads and infrastructure in Pagosa. But there was a lot of emphasis put on signage, stop signs versus yield signs. Because if a vehicle doesn't have to stop at a stop sign and go again, you're gonna develop washboard slower. Because if you come to a stop and then you speed up, you have a tendency of getting washboards before and after a stop sign. To where if you look at a lot of the signage in Angel Fire, some of it falls clear back when it was all chip sealed and they used the signs for speed control. So there's signs that are in Angel Fire right now that could be yield signs, just to let that traffic flow and not have to come to a stop, because the traffic's not so heavy that you're gonna be stopping all the time. Like there's places on Via Del Rey that you never see a vehicle, but you have to stop for that
For the
intersection.
Yeah.
Where if that could be a yield sign, and I don't know what, budget would be to change signs. I know there would have to be a process that goes across your desk on safety, because I'm sure signage is all about safety. That if some of that could get set a little better and we could just get the flow of traffic to keep moving versus have to stop and go. You understand what I?
I'd like to see which ones, would meet that proposal. There might be some perhaps. And somebody mentioned earlier, maybe it was you, that, speed causes the washboards. It absolutely does, but the number one cause, in my opinion, I've never looked at a study on this, is the amount of traffic and usage. And Angel Fire has grown with construction. We just learned in our meeting that we're 30% more building permits for this year than we were over last year at this time. So, but with more building certainly comes more construction vehicles and large trucks.
And one of the other things in Pagosa that we did in all of our developments were pretty much any development you go into in Pagosa, there's a sign requesting that people use all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. Just so they're not spinning their rear tires, because spinning your rear tires really develops the washboard too. And
I'm sorry, but if I may,
it's small
It
steps.
does,
but-
yeah. Please join me.
if I may, and yeah, I agree, Pagosa Springs is a pretty place. One of the things I hate about it is
It's
all the damn
different.
signs.
Yeah.
It looks horrible. And we try to put a bunch of signage up on these roads, we will get some pushback. You know, we got pushback on, by the wedding deck for putting 8 no parking signs up. 1 wasn't enough, people still parked there, 2 wasn't enough, and you know what? 8 isn't enough. But, you know, but you understand what I'm saying, I mean, we see it on some of our highways right now, I don't know if you've come out of U Park heading west in the dark in a while, but there's so many signs and they're so bright. It's like driving with somebody with their headlights in your eyes. So we need to, you know, we need to, you know, obviously we're not gonna solve it by a sign. I mean, a sign saying don't shoot at the mine probably wouldn't have stopped people from shooting guns at the mine,
Or the target.
Yeah,
but yeah, I
but
mean,
what I'm talking is like one sign at the bottom of each arterial road, and it's not so much, it's just planting that seed again, it's like, a lot of people don't realize how much difference that could make. Because four-wheel drive does make a difference. I mean, it's just common sense. If you're not spinning your rear tires all the time, it's gonna help. And a lot of what do we say, our first amount of traffic that we get here is Texas. And a lot of these people live in cities, and most of them have real nice SUVs. They have all-wheel drive, which is fine because they're already in four-wheel drive. But the ones that are not, it's easy to just turn that button and put it in four-wheel drive and plant that seed to get people thinking that direction. And it will eventually help, because in Pagosa it helped a lot, because it was a big difference. When we bladed in the spring and bladed in the fall, we had a pretty good schedule on how much the washboards grew. And with the four-wheel drive developments, it was a lot less. It would let them last longer. But anyhow,
okay, but as far as, you know, something coming from this committee as a long-term goal, is a problem solved. Here again, we're zeroing in on a real specific operational item. I don't believe that's the purpose of this committee. You know, we're wanting to set long-term goals and identify projects and long-term needs when we're talking about specific intersections. And we're talking signage. So if we may, you know, I do want to thank Chief for coming in today. And I will say that anytime we're out working and we are exposed to challenges for reckless driving, this, that, and the other, and we call him, he's right there. Or one of his guys is right there. They're always on point. And anytime that we're out working, we notice areas of extra heavy traffic or people not observing the speed limit, we communicate that to him and they're up there. But just as we have the challenge, we can't fix every single road every single day. They cannot patrol every single road every single day. You know, Chief currently has the same challenges we do, staffing levels. He's getting more applications than I am. I'm envious of it. But yeah,
Share a couple of helps.
but you know, here again, absolutely, as far as signage and different methods to try to address this, you know, that's another thing to bring up as a point of discussion within the community and get people's different viewpoint. Because I would venture to say that you may have some that have the same opinion, that they didn't move up here to drive roads that had a whole bunch of signs or have cameras or have, you know, something flashing at them that they're driving too fast. I think, you know, there are some of us that live up here because we want to be away from that stuff.
So just a quick question, Chief. How long do your cruisers last on these roads? And comparable to like Red River or Cuesta?
Mike, I'm very blessed to have mostly a fleet of newer vehicles. My Durango is a 23 model and I think it's got about 34,000 miles on it. So the older expeditions, if you're leading into like struts and shocks and brake failures from the dust and stuff, we've had brake problems. I really haven't seen any suspension related problems on those vehicles, but and I say this with some amount of certainty. We're not the ones out there speeding, but we do drive fast when we have to get somewhere. And more splintered roads cause us a challenge too and delay our response times as well, especially if we're going way up on the mountain, either east or west of the town here, or of the main body of town. So, I guess I'm gonna say we really haven't had that as an issue. I do want to mention that even on our license plate readers, we went the first full year with no problems whatsoever. We did have one stolen and one vandalized about a month ago. Both in the same general area, southern part of town over here. I suspect we could see some of that with these speed signs or things like that. I'd have to get with Eliana and see if self-insured would insure those for us. And if so, is our deductible going to be a $5,000 deductible? It may or may not be worthy of that. One other thing, back to your point on the signs, and Kurt brings up a good point. I've heard that about 434. Can you guys do something about all these blank signs? Yeah, they're not blank signs. If we were going to do something like speed monitor by radar or any other kind of sign, perhaps we could integrate them on the pole that's already there with the speed limit sign and just place them below it and not have another sign post. Maybe as a thought, it just occurred to me. Honestly, I don't know. I'm not coming here today with an answer. I'm also not coming here today with avoidance of this problem.
I'm reminded of a report on the NBC affiliate a couple of years ago, reporting how as the rail runner was coming off from La Bajada Hill towards Santa Fe, that there was an issue because people on the interstate were racing the train. And I had to laugh because I've been on that road when the train wasn't on it and they were still going
And they're
85
still
miles
going.
an hour. So yeah, I think we can all appreciate that, you know, our best hope is that people do the right thing. You know, I just want to reinforce that Chief Holgriff and his crew are extremely helpful to us on the safety side. They come right away if we're having an issue. And they're doing their best, and we should all be very grateful to have the public safety crew that we have.
I know you've got challenges with staffing and water truck driver, and you could blade all day right now without that water truck and it's not gonna last.
It's not doing
We both know that, so.
Yeah.
Other thoughts or questions or an invitation to come back if the community gives some feedback or thoughts, I'd be very open to that.
You're always welcome.
Thanks. I do want to mention though, again, and I didn't do a crash data study relating to anything other than 434. And I can demonstrate with all certainty, we reduced that. And in fact, the first 2 years of the study were 15, 15, and then it went to like 12. And then the last 2 years were 7 and 7. So, has no coincidence with, I've only been here 2 years, but I'm just saying that efforts have been made to reduce collisions, which reduces injuries, which reduces all of our insurance rates and things like that in the overall picture. I could look at the data or try to extract the data for everything outside of 434 and report to the committee if we're having similar results. Then I'm not saying we're looking at a problem that doesn't exist, but maybe we're looking at a problem that is not as serious as it could be, if that makes any sense. Okay. And, you know, again, I got relatives all over the state of Texas. I'm born and raised in Oklahoma. I travel back to visit them periodically. I'm sure other people in this room might as well. The worst stretch of highway, in my opinion, in New Mexico is when I cross that state line and the speed limit drops to 60 and I've been traveling 75 in Texas all day long. So that does extend here to Angel Fire. maybe not so much right here in the core center of town, but if we get up north towards 64 or south past Country Club, where the speed zones are 45, that's our fastest speed zone in this village, is 45. We do capture a lot of people. We do clock a lot of people, capture data that are greatly exceeding that. And of course, they see a patrol car and you see the front end dip because they hit the brakes, but, it's the clientele we have, and honestly, gentlemen, I've been in this business for over 40 years now as a law enforcement man, and I'm very glad that we have our tourist-based population here. That's what drives our economy. And with that, I'm segueing into my last comment I wanted to make before the end of the day. I feel like I need to find a nice balance between what's sufficient in enforcement to bring safety and slow people down versus getting a reputation of being a speed trap. And I certainly don't want to bring that to the village either.
We appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you guys for your guidance.
Yeah,
All right,
you be safe.
thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay. That was very, very, very good. Okay, let's move along, and now our charter is what we really need to look at. And I know you guys did a lot of work on it when I wasn't here at our last meeting, and we have we really need to go ahead and just start at the top of it. We'll work our way through it and make sure that we have everything where we want it to be.
Yeah, sure. Kurt, did you get a copy of this?
Not the revised one. I did, I just didn't get it today.
I've got an extra copy of it if you want.
So our last meeting, we'd gone through the initial charter. And, had quite a few comments on it. I think Chuck had asked me to incorporate all those comments so that he could, take a look at it, and I had sent him a Word version that had all of the portions that I changed. Then I sent him a PDF version, which I think the PDF version is the copy that you have. And the only feedback that I've gotten is to remove the "and available funding" at the end of the first paragraph. There been any other comments, Chuck? Have you gotten any other feedback?
No,
Positive, negative?
that was the only one. All the rest it was all positive. It's just that's a council staff function.
Yeah.
But we came a long ways here.
Yep.
Get those changes put in. And we can consider that a final copy. With that,
Yes, sir.
so we could do those changes and then we could, have that copy put together so we can present it to council.
Right. I'll just remove that thing and send it to you, Chuck.
And send it to me.
You'll present it to council, or are you presenting?
Either way,
You send it to me, I get it to Ileana and she'll cause it to go to council.
Okay.
Yes, but if you want to be there to present it, that's fine. If not, one of us can speak on your behalf.
and we could do it because I think it would be good for us to
I
present
agree.
it just to
Did you go through it there?
be their representative.
This is your first time you've seen it, or?
Yeah, it's the first time I've gone through it, so yeah, if you want to, go ahead and just read through it. It's just 2 pages.
Let's read through it.
I have to say, I would consider 3 to 6 years short-term goals. Considering the funding cycle through the grant process. That's just opinion.
Yeah, I get
Because I think what you're talking about in short term, in 1 year, then that falls into operations. And that kind of contradicts the scope. Primary scope. Yeah, opinion. I mean, it's really not up to me to approve this. This is.
Yeah, no, I think kind of what it is that if there's projects on the ICIP and they request our input on them or whatever, that's more along the lines. I don't think it falls into operations. I mean, that's the intent, is to keep this out of
So
operations.
just like the yearly ICIP review, okay,
Yes.
that'd be good to, okay. You assist Public Works Department in prioritizing maintenance.
Where you at?
Desired outcomes, fourth bullet point.
So I think where that came from was that I looked onto the webpage. And there's nothing on the webpage for the roads and infrastructure portion. So I think prioritization might be the word that you're looking at, but I think you kind of need to communicate some of the work that you're doing to the public.
Okay.
If that makes sense to you.
I think we want that. Yeah, whatever you guys think, it's fine. It's not up to me to approve this. I don't agree with that fourth bullet point, but. Okay, I read it.
If we just put something like assist when requested or something like that.
It's fine. We can take prioritization out. I think that's what you're having heartburn with, isn't it?
Well, again, I mean, if we want the goal of the committee to be what's specified in the scope of work, and the primary scope is to prioritize road, water, sewer, and solid waste projects. I mean, if you wanted to add operations to that, somewhere in the scope, which I don't think that's really what we want to do, is that? Okay.
Okay, how would we rewrite that?
To take it out.
Remove it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Also, under desired outcomes, number 2, where it says Title 7 and Title 8, Title 8 should be Title 4.
What was Title 8? Title 8.
Title 8 has to do more with subdivision codes.
Title 8 building code and fire. We don't have a building official, so it's kind of quiet.
Yeah.
We did have the fire chief look over his portions of that, and we've already made amendments to that.
Yeah, it should be 4 because Title 4 is solid waste.
That would be 4.
Is it 9 that has the stuff? No, it's 8 that has stuff for subdivisions, right?
No, it's,
Or is that 9?
I think its own standalone title, 10 subdivisions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have got there eventually.
Well, you started at 9.
Yeah. 9.5, whatever it takes.
See anything else?
No, good.
We have corrections
Yeah,
that
so
we need.
we need a motion.
To make the amendments? Is that what you're saying? Or a motion to approve the amendments? Absolutely.
We good? We're gonna give it up.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the amendments.
I'll second
All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so now you approved the amendments, now you need to approve the charter.
Okay.
You approved the amendments to the charter?
Yeah.
It's technical, I know, but now you need to approve your charter if that's what you want to move forward with.
Okay, that's,
That's what you want to do.
okay.
I move the approval of the charter as with the amendments.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Scott,
Aye.
so we are approved with our charter.
Yeah.
We can get that
Right.
printed up, finalized, and then we'll present it to council.
Yeah. I will.
Okay. Let's move on. Okay, the next that we have on here is we had a meeting early last week, and it was Brett and Chuck, Kurt, and I. And we discussed a lot of things that we have went through since we started this early spring. And I think what we really came down to is we really need to back up on some of the things that we are trying to accomplish. Part of it is we were kind of wrapped up into trying to find some priorities for projects, and we were bouncing all over the place with roads and water and sewer and solid waste. And Brett had brought some really good information to us, and I think that we really need to follow his lead on this. And part of it is establish some criteria. Okay? And even if it takes us longer, we really need to establish criteria versus like roads will be a criteria, water will be a criteria, sewers a criteria, solid waste is a criteria. I talked to Santos earlier today, and he feels that maybe storm drainage may come into play to be a criteria, just because if we can get these criteria set, then underneath water, there'll be criteria that are all connected with water. Even if it's PRV or pumps, tanks, whatever that's all involved with water, we can sort it out to where it's going to be easier for us to find the criteria that we're looking for. Sure, you could go water, criteria pump, criteria tank for that. And then that'll itemize it down to where we can itemize our decision on projects and know where they're at. Okay, so we really need to put the time into establishing criteria. Chris is awesome with spreadsheets. It might be a perfect way to set up a spreadsheet to where that criteria would be water. Then every column after that would be another criteria that is based to water. Okay, all it is it's a way for us to really focus on which criteria that we're working on. Because then we can put on our agenda that we're going to be working on solid waste. We pull up that criteria, all the phases under solid waste, there would be a criteria versus if it's a pump in the treatment plant or if it's the system on how it all works. But we're still so new learning all these things. If we have the criteria, then we know what we're looking for to get educated. Okay, I know it's been hard on Kurt because we've overwhelmed him all year about knowledge because that's what we're the most hungry for is knowledge, because we can't really decide things unless we understand what we're even trying to decide.
You haven't overwhelmed me, at all. Don't worry about that. It would, you know, and pardon me if I'm interrupting, but one of the things we discussed, we thought would be useful, and it could be done even before the criteria are developed. Do a survey, see what the priorities of the community are, get some feedback from the community. We did that with Alan Fields, and the gentleman, the architectural, the landscape architect that did put the survey out said it was one of the best responses of any community he's ever done a survey in. I'm guessing we could get as strong of a response from the community. You know, we all understand that the responses are gonna be all over the place. Everybody's gonna start with their own
Yeah.
road.
And that's where I was gonna go after. My criteria thing is to set up the survey. But go ahead and finish what you're saying.
Yeah, I just, but yeah, to, you know, develop the criteria that you're gonna make your own judgment on what roads should, how they should be prioritized, or projects, I should say, how they're gonna be prioritized. Yeah, I think it keeps us a little more focused than talking about specific operation elements. I think we need to be thinking towards more broader goals. So that's really all I've got.
Yeah.
If there's anything else in there.
But, and that pretty much criteria, that's something like we can even do work sessions within our committee to get all our criteria set up. The survey, I think it's an awesome thing, and it would have to be structured to where we want more people coming in here to our meeting. We want more public input. We want to understand their concerns, you know, and we even discussed it could really stir up a hornet's nest to bring a lot of people in here, because we might end up with more negative than we're gonna get positive. But any way we look at it, we need to get that feedback from the community. Once we get that that feedback, then that's gonna help us focus on what we really need to kind of move up on those criteria, where it's more of a concern for the public.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused because criteria to me is what you're ranking it on, not a physical attribute, not a physical road or whatever. That's not a criteria in my mind. In my mind, the criteria is based upon safety or reliability or something like that. So the way that I think about it in my mind is that so all the roads out there are just the roads out there, right? But we want to rank them basically on their safety, their reliability, their
It could be things like, you know, when you're going to go up and look at a road and essentially make an assessment, what criteria you're gonna use, you're gonna look at it. How safe does this road appear to me?
Right.
Okay, how well does this road appear to drain?
Okay,
What is the quality of the surface?
and we use the same criteria on every road.
Yes.
So that we
Right.
rank them all equally and not because I know the end of the road.
so.
Yeah.
Kind of creative.
so
Yeah,
back up
and then
would be-
from, you know, and then you know, make try to make the assessment. A lot of this has got to be from, you know, if we're expecting y'all to go out and do an assessment on the road based on the criteria we've established, you know, some of it has to be from your own perception. How much traffic are you perceiving on the road? You know, what is your perception on how frequent the maintenance should be?
So I thought would be the criteria.
You know, but I think you can get a lot of elements of criteria there, and that dilutes it. So I think we had talked about keeping it pretty generalized.
Well, so in Title VII, it sets out criteria for an arterial, for a collector, for local access, and then there's a secondary local access, and I can't remember what they called that, and then the last one was primitive, right? Yeah. There's only one road or two roads in our community that are arterial based upon that criteria.
Yeah.
In Title VII, yes. And in fact, I couldn't find any roads that are actually collectors based upon that criteria. Because one of the primary criteria for classifying the roads is the average daily traffic. And there's kind of a break mark at 500 cars on the average, 500 vehicles on the average daily traffic. And I did the same thing as the chief, as I went around and kind of sat at a corner one day and counted how many cars come by, and some of the roads that I thought were extremely busy here. And of course, it wasn't the 4th of July, it was after the 4th of July. But we're nowhere near 500 cars per day on any of these roads. So we have an arterial road on 434 and 64, and we have the local access roads, the lower level, lower access roads, and that's all that I've been able to see. And when you base the roads on that, then the improvements of those roads is pretty much set out in Title VII. That, you know, it's, and like
So then maybe we recommend that the criteria that's in Title VII be lowered so that we can make a distinction between arterials, collectors, and local streets. Maybe 500 is way too high.
One of the changes in that is the requirement for the improvement of the road, which is, you know, 8 inches of I mean, a collector road is supposed to be improved based upon NMDOT section. You probably know it off the top of your head, but I can't remember what it is, but there's like, the arterial roads are supposed to have 6 inches of asphalted concrete. The collector roads are supposed to be 4 inches, and the local access roads are supposed to have 2 inches. That's probably not gonna happen. But that's what the
Well, what it does is it establishes if you're going to pave, those are the thicknesses you must have. But in looking at it, I'm guessing you could make the same deduction that I have, is that when those criteria were put in Title VII, I don't think they developed those criteria based on fuel fire and how it's laid out. Probably just pulled the table right out of the DOT book and slipped it in there. And so it's may not necessarily be applicable. I mean, I could go off on a rant about, you know, DOT standards that, you know, talk about DOT spec base course. 4 different types of base course that they have DOT spec for. But how many gravel roads do you see DOT maintain? You know, they put asphalt over everything. Anyway, long story short, you know, maybe that's a discussion to be had in review of Title VII. Do we need to look at the classification of our arterial roads or collector roads and our local roads and develop our own criteria? One thing that I still struggle with while I was in the excavation business is it was very tough to find a clear set of specifications for roads. And when big projects happen, like the special assessment district, or particularly the public improvement district, there were 5 different road profiles that were approved for that project. Okay, I don't know that, and we can't really get ourselves in a bind if we just come up with one road profile that has to fit everywhere. Some of our right of ways won't accommodate it. Thus, during the PID, that's why they had different road profiles. But one of the frustrations for me as an excavation contractor is I wanted some clear set of definitions and everything from road profile to installation standards of water lines. You know, it's some things are just not applicable throughout that they need to be adjusted. You know, we've discovered that in areas over, I think it's 9,300 feet, 6 foot of area isn't sufficient for water lines. You know, but I think, I'm sorry for getting off on a rant, but I really feel that the table that established those criteria, as far as what's collector and so forth and so on, I think it's just pulled out of a book somewhere.
I agree with you 100%. It's not applicable, but what was hard for me was that the GIS map and the village GIS map, it's made new classifications for all the roads. I mean, there's unimproved, and that's not in there at all. It's primitive.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't go to the arterial collector. I can't remember what it was. It was just different descriptions of it. So, I mean, that's where I think we can bring some consistency is making everything
Yeah.
consistent across the board so that you can apply some consistent criteria to it and vary from that criteria if you need to, because that's gotta happen too. You gotta use common sense
Yeah.
to vary from those criteria. So,
Yeah, I'd like to think back a little bit to the basics. I think it's maybe 15 years old. A job working for Houston Lumber. They let me drive a delivery truck and trying to give me directions up here. Old guy I worked with named Terry Molyneux gave the best explanation on how to navigate around this town. Okay, so on this side, you've got two main roads that go up. At that time, there was no East Valley Drive. So it was El Camino Real all the way up to the top. Then you had the Back Basin Road. On this side, so you've got 3 ways up and 1 way across. Okay, Via Del Rey across. Spyglass, Taos Drive, Valle Grande North. That's how you get around. Everything connects to those roads. You go this way, everything's gonna connect to one of those 4 roads. So, I think if we get caught up on the terminology, okay, what's a collector, what's an arterial, what's that and the other, might be a little confusing for the public. I know we have to have it in ordinance, but for the sake of conversation at a meeting like this, it's a matter of busy roads and less busy roads, or the road you need to get out and if there's 2 feet of snow. Okay, you need a road down if there's 2 feet of snow. I don't know, but it might be kind of a discussion I'll have with Santos about if there is the opportunity to develop that criteria where it's understandable and how it relates to this Angel Fire specific. It's just so broad based right now.
No, exactly what Kurt just said. I mean, if we need to define it for an Angel Fire specific, I mean, you could look at right of way that's required to call this road a collector or arterial. You could look at maximum speed as another criteria. Is this a local? Is this primitive? There's different ways that we could look at it. But I think it's fair because for whatever reason, in 2013, the definition of a minor arterial was removed from the code. And so if there's an idea to put that classification back, Kurt's right. If we're going to have a discussion about what works for Angel Fire, that's part of that discussion of what works for Angel Fire. And if we need to come up with different criteria for different road classifications, this is the time to do it. I don't disagree with Kurt. Looking at these definitions just came from a manual from someplace else. It really was not specific. The last thing I want to say is that, about 1.5 years ago, council finally amended the thoroughfare plan from 2004 that had collectors running through the Girl Scout Ranch and the RV park, or I have no idea why. Yeah, so this part of that conversation that you're discussing right now can be rolled into these bigger, I mean, the gentleman just mentioned that our maps don't seem to match what our road classifications are. Well, I think that leads to this whole update that we've been discussing in bits and pieces. I think all of that's within your purview to kind of flesh out so that it can get to council in a good form, so that it can be enacted and that Kurt can have the roles that he's needing defined better with clarity. I think all of that makes total sense.
But one thought I've had too is maybe a lot of the problem is in the terminology. We talk arterial and collectors, that think it's understandable and means something to us. I think about what it means to the average citizen. I mean, especially, considering the way things are, our state of drought and dryness. I've had discussions with Chief Vance about really clearly identifying, and they are identified, your fire escape routes, if you will. And one could say that those fire escape routes should be viewed as your arterial roads. These are your main roads, okay? These are your escape routes. So when somebody asks the question, Why is it called an arterial road? It's because it's an escape route if there's a disaster. Just a thought.
Makes complete sense, and that's why you need the criteria to determine those, and I know they're already there, I know they're already determined, but we need to match some criteria to that to make sure that we have them all covered. And we have them all prioritized, so that they can be used as escape routes. Have you ever been to Houston?
Just through the airport.
Lucky guy.
They have 2 circle roads out there, and those are the hurricane escape routes for the tourists.
Oh, you just follow the rotation of the hurricane?
That's what I was told when I said that we had a hurricane. Yeah, no, I agree 100%, and I agree that we need to get some, that's my thing, is that we need to get some consistent terminology so that everybody's talking about the same thing.
Sure.
Because Title VII defines them differently than we've been defining them in here.
Yeah.
So we need to stay consistent completely, and said that the maps call it something else, so.
Sure. Well, you know, one thing, you know, going back to what you mentioned, I would really like to encourage public to come. And, you know, in one of the previous meetings you mentioned that, you know, it's gotta be tough having people come and complain to me all the time and everything. But you know what makes it easy? Is when somebody comes to me and they complain about a road being bad, I know it's bad. I understand their frustration. I've driven on it too. Okay, but what I really wanted for quite some time is for people to come to these meetings so it can have the opportunity to give them the realistic view of what our resources are. Which I think, I venture to say that y'all are maybe a little more enlightened into what our capabilities are, what our funding has been. Pretty soon you're gonna see what our funding is. And I will say that's different than what you reviewed before, significantly. You know, everybody has staffing challenges, and they can be viewed by the public as excuses. But it is the reality of it. If you get down to one motor grader operator, there's only so much road you can blaze. It's the reality of it. You lose a water truck driver, you can't run water every day. And on the funding side, I feel that, you know, people may be under the impression that it's just very easy to get the money to just pave a few extra miles of road. And it's just not the reality of it. So, you know, the thing is, if we cannot shy away from encouraging public involvement in these meetings because we might be hearing things that we don't want to be told. That's the point of it. And I've got no problem just sitting and listen to people voice their frustrations, because it is frustrating. I feel confident that there are a lot of people out there that see we have made some changes. We still have a long ways to go, and we'll always have work to do on the roads. Plain and simple. And, you know, I'll close with saying that a couple of years ago, we base course 15 miles of road. And it's been a challenge keeping some of that stuff put together, because it just doesn't, you can't just put it down and last forever. But I do have to say that there were sections of El Camino Real that under the criteria could have been classified as primitive road, simply because of rocks sticking up this big. And so proud of a lot of things that we've done, but we still got a lot to do. We need the resources to do it as well. And a lot of those resources come from the economic success of this community. I do want to add, if nobody has any questions, that I have spoke with a vendor about a product I'm going to try for dust control. It's a polymer. I finally found a company that doesn't expect us to spend $500,000 for just to try a product out and get a small amount. And questioning the salesman and asking him about magnesium chloride, they agreed it's a product that does not work in a dry environment. It seems odd. If it's labeled as a dust control product, it basically takes constant water added to it. Okay. So he has another product we're going to try. It's a polymer. that builds up over time. I think it's similar to what you were mentioning. It's a byproduct of the lumber industry, I believe you said. And, so we're gonna give it a shot. And, they're gonna try it on Valle Grande North. Okay, see how it works, and I'll keep y'all posted on that.
Wait, what's the timeline on it?
It's probably gonna be about a month or so. Before we get it implemented, not just a matter of getting it delivered, but just what I have in front of me in regards to roads and workforce housing, and
Is that just applied on surface or do you have to roll it open and?
you can do both. You can do a depth treatment by milling it. And you can do a heavy spray and then just supplement it. Or you can just start a little bit at a time, but apparently it says the polymers will accumulate. Yeah, more and more. Now, what was most impressive when I asked him what happens come spring during mud season? He said, yeah, probably gonna start all over again. It was a pleasure to speak to a salesman that was just realistic about the challenge of dust control. So, very knowledgeable. Any more questions for me?
No, I don't think so. Okay, so I think where we started it all, to, you know, it was probably my fault because roads, water, and sewer, they're not really a criteria, they're just something, but the criteria would fall underneath them. Okay, so we know as a committee, that's where we're gonna have to put our heads together and really structure those columns and those criteria, because the criteria, there's so many things to it, and you get it on the head with, the amount of traffic and safety and all the things that are involved with it. So that's where I think, what I got out of this last meeting we had with Brett and everybody was, we don't have to be so worried about being in a big hurry, because council is on our side, and it's better for us to get everything structured where we can make good decisions. Yeah, and by the time we get to that point, we get it itemized down to where when we find a project, then we can present that to council. But, and Brett told me also that if, as a committee, we want, he'll come in at any time and he will speak with us, because Brett is a very intelligent person and he knows really a lot about how the government part works. And he can really help us, I think, guiding us into structuring our committee to where we're gonna all be happy and be here. Because we don't want to get in a point where everybody is so overwhelmed that we start losing our members, because what we're putting together right now, we need to really kind of bond together and really make it work. Randy is an asset, but Randy is a very busy person. You know, he's got a lot of things on his plate. Being retired makes it next to impossible for us to really structure a schedule. It would be nice if we could come out and say 3 o'clock every first and third Tuesday of every month. It's hard to do that because you guys are retired, I'm retired, and there's a lot of things that you want to do. We've seen it.
Kind of what we did last month is we picked the third Monday was. Second Monday of every month at 3 o'clock, and that.
Primary meeting, yes.
Yes, and we really kind of need that structure. I want to apologize for the hell I've been through and this medical nightmare that I've been through. So now I'll be at, I guess I get to live, so there's a lot more time that I can put into this and try to help you guys more. And, I've had a discussion with, Kurt, and
I
we
think
do have a couple more people that would be interested in sitting on the committee.
our next, oh, sorry for interrupting. I think our next step is in our charter, we put that we were gonna draft the infrastructure development plan and put that together. So I think that's kind of what we need to focus on, is putting putting that together for the next.
Maybe we should get that on our next agenda.
Mr. Chair, what I'd like to do would be to meet individually with each committee member and sort of pick your brains, get your ideas and then pull all that together.
That'd be great.
That
And
would
if
be
that's
good.
all right, I'll call each one of you, set up a time we could come in here and do that.
That would be good,
That would be perfect.
because then we can, I mean, everybody's got an expertise. I mean, and that's where we gotta focus on that, to where everybody, we're gonna get the best things out of each member. Okay? Do we have any questions? When do we want to,
For our regular meeting, do we want third Monday
Uh,
or second Monday?
the second Monday of each month.
Okay,
second Monday of every month? So our next meeting would be the 27th.
Our next meeting
August
would be the 10th, yes, for the main meeting,
At 3,
3 o'clock,
it's available.
Monday, August 10th.
August 10th.
Okay.
I will say that I won't be able to attend that day, but I'm guessing what we discussed in that meeting probably doesn't require my presence here. Hopefully, we're to the
Yeah.
point where you're working on that stuff.
Yep. I think when we get a finished project, then you'll have some input into it.
Well, and normally I would try to join in or something, but celebrating my 40th wedding anniversary, so I think I might give Village Hall a break on that
Congratulations.
day. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll just go ahead and set it for that date.
All right.
Which 10th? Okay, and then we'll just not go any farther than that.
Right,
Kind of just do it as we go.
right. Okay.
Okay, any new business, anything that you guys feel that we need to bring up? Yes,
Like to address the committee? I
you
mean,
have the floor.
in 2016, they were talking about the GEO bond. It failed prior, X number, 3 years before, it failed bad, by 5 votes. And the mayor at the time wanted to get the GEO bond approved. So I became chair of the GEO bond committee. Now, as part of that, and I had been on Public Works for about 2 years before that, so I had some basic knowledge of what was going on. Unfortunately, I have in my hand here, this is the document that was used at the time to say, this is what the GEO bond is gonna do for this community. I went out and promoted the GEO bond based upon this piece of paper. Here we are 10 years later, and none of this has occurred. Just total failure. And I knew that the whole thing was in trouble. And I have weekly meetings with village administrator, finance director, occasional council members. You couldn't all attend it all the time because you had a problem with too many people at the meeting. And we went through and discussed all this stuff every week from, like, say, June when we started until I went back to Dallas in September. The election was in November, passed with 73% of the vote in favor. Now, to get that, we had phone banks and other things that made things happen. And so it was a complete turnaround from the effort that was made a couple of years before. But I learned a phenomenal amount sitting down with these people on a weekly basis and going through each and every item that you're talking about. We looked at water, okay? And I don't know if you guys are aware of it at all, but the water distribution system in Angel Fire is well below standard. You're supposed to have 6-inch lines to be able to fight a fire in Angel Fire. And there are some 3-inch lines and some 4-inch lines, or they were at that time. Maybe they've been upgraded since then. I know that the road in front of my house is substandard and cannot effectively fight a fire. If you look at that, you know, that's something that needs to be addressed from a water standpoint. If you look at a sewer standpoint, the problem we looked at in 2016 was we don't have enough people on the sewer system. We got to get more people on the sewer system, make it more viable. Okay, so what's happened since then? Well, you've gotten the RV park. I guess the RV park is probably on the system. Is that right? Sewer system?
Yes,
Does anybody know?
it is.
Yes, as is mobile home estates,
Yes.
No, I was
That's
talking about the
correct.
RV park.
the RV resort, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
on,
yeah, mobile home estates right before you head up the canyon.
that's on the sewer system.
That used to have its own sewer system. It's on the sewer now. as well.
Okay, good.
That was part of the special assessment district. That was the last major sewer project.
Okay.
Here, aside from the pit.
If I say something wrong, you know, correct me. I mean, just pipe on in. You look at the sewer system, one of the things that even before I was on the committees, talking about one of the former mayors, is that the area around Monteverdi Lake is like a potential environmental disaster. Because you have all this stuff seeping into that lake from septic systems. Now, if you have a problem, you don't have people on the sewer system, it seems to me that the thing to do is to have a PID that would run around Monteverdi Lake, you know, and take people and put them on the sewer system. Now, there would be an assessment to do that. But as these septic systems fail, I've been quoted is that to replace them, is they have to pay $25,000 for a new septic system to meet standard around that lake. So this is another area. In terms of the roads, it was really amazing to me that you'd ask a question and say, has anybody done a study of what the traffic is on each of these roads? Not every little dribbling, you know, tertiary type thing, but the main arteries here coming off 434 and up through Camino Real. And I asked a basic question. Has anybody ever tracked the traffic on these highways? No. So I said, oh, why don't we get some kind of, I said, there was a system. You had these things you put in the road on Camino Real a long time ago that collected data, whatever happened to them. We don't know. We don't know where they are. And they said, well, why don't you go find them? So they went and found them and they found out they no longer work at all, just been cast aside. So I'm in the meeting and I say, well, why don't we get these little rubber strips that you put across the road and count the traffic? Well, we could do that. So Brett's in the meeting. Brett gets on his phone, says, hey, we can get 4 or 5 systems. I can't remember which. For like $2,500. And I said, this is wonderful. We can go collect data to find out where our traffic is. This makes sense to me. I come back the following meeting next week and say, well, do we buy the system? No. What was the problem? Village administrator at the time said, I'm not going to spend money on something like that. I mean, it's like, just so frustrating. It was unbelievable. And so this is what you're kind of, I don't know, they just go on and on and on. I can fill you in on all these horror stories from the 3 or 4 months that I spent conducting these meetings, and it's just horrendous, just horrendous. So you got a big task in front of you, you know, lots of luck. I mean, based upon my experience, it's not a very rewarding experience at all.
If I may, I'd just like to add in regards to Gobon, since really 2017. The vast majority of GO bond dollars, particularly on the water and sewer side, have gone to plan and design. So I think everybody was under the impression that when GO bond started, they're gonna have all this cash to do all these projects. I understand that, you know, there were some projects funded with GO bond, San Mateo project, San Mateo Spyglass was one of them. Vale and Aspen Street down here. Even with Vale and Aspen Street, more money was spent on engineering than, because they were told that GO bond project, that all of the roads and infrastructure within the core of the village were gonna be able to be done. When it was all said and done, at Miller Lane, Aspen Street, and a small piece of Vale. Okay, so, I think there were good intentions, a good impression to how, but the reality is the GO bond dollars didn't go as far as people expected. And we did just receive, funding of $5.6 million to upsize the water lines around Monte Verde Lake. And yeah, we would like to put sewer around Monte Verde Lake. And it makes perfect sense. We'd like to have sewer everywhere. But part of getting sewer to Monte Verde Lake is $5 to $6 million, getting it from where it ends now to Monte Verde Lake. Okay, $5 to $6 million that would not include any hookups. Okay, because the sewer does not go all the way to Monte Verde Lake. There are approximately 47 miles of undersized lines up here. And it's not just 3 and 4 inch, there's also 2-inch lines. Okay, 2-inch water main in some of these subdivisions. We want to address it. The reality of it is, a conservative estimate is $150 million to upsize all of the water. We're not gonna do that with GO bond dollars. What GO bond dollars, and then that project where we're upsizing the water line, we got the approval for phase 1, which is essentially half of the Monte Verde Lake subdivision. $5.6 million for half of that subdivision. Okay, the plan and design for both phases is $700,000. Plan and design is covered by general obligation bonds plus capital appropriation. So again, here's the opportunity for everybody to have a clear understanding. What can be done with GO bond dollars? Now, since I've taken this position, the majority of GO bond dollars that was in streets has gone to streets projects. Okay. There was one GO bond year where everything went to water and wastewater streets, didn't get any of them.
That was that's the thing that fooled me.
Yeah.
Because we had all these meetings and that was not identified as a major problem. All those meetings we had, and then as soon as the money showed up, it all went to wastewater.
Yeah. Well, it was water and wastewater. Majority of that money did go to planning and design also. Because in order to get grants, you have to go to the table with plan and design. So, you know, appreciate Mr. Fear's, you know, involvement in the community all these times. And I know he's very frustrated. You know, I think we've all been frustrated when the reality of what's out there for funding and how much you can do with that funding actually is. And it's gotten to where each component, water line, sewer line, and paving, each element is at least $1 million a mile. Okay, so that's the reality of it.
Just in front of my house, there's a stretch water line. Looking at upgrading the water line, it's gonna cost 2 or 3 times what it was to upgrade the roads. It's just amazing.
We're gonna keep getting after it with everything we got, Mr. Fewer.
Yeah.
And do everything we can, sir.
If I could just add one more, you correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the state requiring a lot of these projects to be designed first before they allocate funding now?
Well,
Isn't that new shovel-ready
water
criteria?
Yeah, Water Trust Board, basically, you're not gonna get anywhere without plan and design.
That's exactly right. So
You're-
you can't just whip up plans.
Yeah.
You gotta hire your survey crew to find out where it is in the right of way, your engineer crews to actually look at the profile. I think what's compounded in Angel Fire is that you don't have any as-bills that you can really confidently point to in some of these subdivisions that are some of the older subdivisions where we think the line's here and we go to dig and it turns out it's not here, it's over there.
Well, that's an issue, but we also, through attrition, if you would say with, what areas that we don't have maps, we know what size water lines are there because we've had to dig them up and fix them. Okay, and we have found errors, places where it shows 6-inch water line and there's actually a 4. Not so much of that, but yeah, even with your TPF fundings, with your road paving projects, we go before them and give our spiel of why we want this funding. The first thing they ask is, are you shovel ready?
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're just kind of knocked down to the end of the list.
And so I think that's part of your conversation that you're having is we weren't trying to get to a spot where we are shovel ready, where something's been designed, something's been staked out. We know this line is substandard from here to there. This criteria that you're discussing for water, sewer, roads, that's a fundamental part in prioritizing where are we going, right? So, it's been a long going frustration. I think the Vale project, started out let's just take the sewer lagoons. When we had to do that upgrade, that was priced out as a $3 million bid. And by the time everything finally came in, it tripled in price. And it was just because the time and just trying to get the designs ready. I think the Vale project was something similar where the initial bid was a couple of million and then multiplied by 3 or 4 because we had to go back. I think some of the concrete we hadn't set right around manholes and there was just a bunch of errors that we just had to go back and fix.
And you got to go back again.
There you go. So I think that's part of the ongoing frustration with this whole idea of infrastructure is that some of it we couldn't get to it because we didn't have shovel-ready plans. And so to get to shovel-ready plans, well, that was $2024. It's 2026 now. I just think the fact that you guys are actually having a conversation and trying to get focused and get a direction that everybody feels confident in is a huge plus. It may sound like it's a repeat of your 2016 Odyssey with Go Bonds. The fact that we're actually talking about it rather than neglecting it, I think is a huge step overall for the village. And I think you're definitely not going to be bored in these conversations. And maybe you should have more drinks other than Gatorade provided. So,
well, one of the toughest things about it is how quick the costs have increased. Even just on Bill Burgess Boulevard. Now, initially, they had planned and designed from 434 up to Vale Avenue. When Julie initially submitted that for TPF funding, the engineer's estimate was just slightly under $2 million. We now have that road broken into 3 phases. That initial section is broken into 2. And they're getting in so both of those combined, the original amount that was just under 2 is now close to 6.
So I guess that's a fallacy there. I understand it's government work, but if you work in private industry, you don't get funding when you're shovel ready. You get funding when you're 50%, when you have a plus or minus 50% estimate, then you start going for funding, and then you start developing that. So I know that's not the way it works for your career. You don't have to correct me. I understand that. But when you work out in private industry, there's no major corporation or major company that's going to give you money when you're shovel ready. It's too late. It's going to go up 3-5 times.
And I just think that's part of the reaction you're having to deal with is that this seems to be a new state mandate, not just for your water district board, but I think, remember there were like $2 billion worth of ICIP funding across the state that's just never been used. And so that in Santa Fe is just filtered down on a lot of these infrastructure projects, capital projects. We want to see something shovel ready
because we're giving out money that's not being used, so.
A couple of the things, I'm sorry, Santos, that have led to a lot of that unspent funding is that, let me use an example. Okay, our fire station is just being built right here, okay? Architect's estimate came in at $14 million. Okay, we've figured out a way we can do stuff and ran some numbers, did some things ourselves where we could do it for 8 to 9. Okay, government gives us 5.5. Okay, we're fortunate that we can cover the rest of it through very other avenues. Where there's a whole bunch of unspent funding is these smaller communities. If if there's any kind of matching fund requirements, if they can't get a waiver for that, they can't cover the burden for matching funds. There are a lot of, the state got to a point where there was all the contractors had so much work on the books. They weren't even getting contractors to bid on these projects. You know, projects of 10 million and less were considered small change. When you had contractors that had $250 million on the books in contracts. So where we've had to use GO bond dollars is to cover a lot of that shortfall, the plan and design, but also some of that in-kind participation that you have to, that you got to pay your end. Okay, we'll get in, you know, even when they give you 90%, that 10% can still be a big bite. Okay. And, you know, we did not do GO bond this year. We're talking about doing it next year. So this next year is going to be pretty lean on stuff.
So, Mr. Fear, can I get a copy of your GO bond list that you said was valid in
Yeah.
2016, just for my own curiosity?
Off the meter right now, all the way to Vail Loop, 30 years.
We can make some copies of that.
Before you leave, I'll just run over here.
Yeah, I'd like to
take the call.
It's front and back.
Conversation.
Thank you for bringing some of that up, our challenges ahead of us.
It's amazing. I mean, the spacing on the hydrants is twice as long as it's supposed to be.
Well, the thing is, with so many, when almost all the infrastructure was put in, there were not standards, there were not regulations that called for every 400 feet like we have right now. Everywhere since the village was incorporated, it's been developed from the south side of the Aspen subdivision to the public improvement district to the Little Elk Meadow subdivision and Valley of the Utes to Valley of the Utes. Special assessment district, all those projects that have taken place since the village of Angel Fire was incorporated, hydrants are 400 feet apart. And the people ask, well, why don't you come put a fire hydrant on our road? And believe it or not, we have encountered fire hydrants that are ran off of 2-inch lines.
It's worse than you think. Because 6-inch line, it's a square of the diameter. So it's like 36 is your magic number. So you get down to 4 and say, it's not that much different, but that's 16 versus 36. It's much worse than 2-inch line is 4 versus 36. 3-inch line, 9 versus 36.
But another thing, we can get, I've got to say, we can get tied up and hung up on fire hydrants and how many there are and how far they are apart. But my first 6 months on this job, we very rarely had a full water tank. When we did, it might have been overflowing. Okay. Fire hydrants don't mean anything if we don't have the water supply. So we've put a lot of, probably the biggest investment in water GO bond dollars that has happened maybe ever up here is we upgraded all of the water booster stations. Okay, where now we're running averages of 75 to 80% full in the tanks. For my first 6 months on the job, we were staying 10%. We were at times maintaining inches of water in tanks, just enough to keep people drinking water. That's the reality of it. So beyond the undersized lines that we have, We have tanks that are, the community's outgrowing. Tank 8 is our next focus. It's too small. Recently did a 300,000 gallon tank for, to replace old tank 7, which was leaking profuse. It's been a game changer for that side of the valve. We've been able to maintain water levels a lot better. You know, there's so many, all the components of the water system are important. We can go put all the big lines in that we want, all the fire hydrants that we want. But if our wells don't work and our booster stations don't work and we've got small tanks, everything, and it's just, the reality of it is, it's all really, really expensive.
At the same time, all this is true. At the same time, the council, when they develop Valley of the Utes, they didn't get approval to do that unless they put in a sewer system, right, Chuck? So they put in $6-8 million in a sewer system on 2.5 acre lots, minimum, or whatever the minimum lake acreage is up there. And that system does not work, it never will work. Unless you have flow,
Unless we run sewer to Monte Verde Lake.
yeah.
All right, yeah, we could go on.
So I had a question for everyone. Did the group get the email that I sent out with the database and some maps, breaking down the street and just starting to look at how do we gather the attributes of the infrastructure so we can have some sort of scoring and some sort of, when we develop the criteria to be able to apply it? Did you guys all get that email?
I did, I took a look at it. I didn't look at the map, but I started taking a look at the data that was on it and trying to get it, kind of get an understanding of it.
It's just the first draft. It was just an hour or two's worth of work to develop that all for the entire village. And my son is willing to keep working on it if it's something that we want to do and follow up with and try to gather up the attributes that would eventually, incorporate what's on the water map, what's on the wastewater map, and have this all for each segment of the community and the length of each of it, so that we have some idea as to what is there and how we can then create that criteria and develop the prioritization of the infrastructure projects that we need to go after to improve the community. Is this going in the direction that we want to go, or should I just just stop working on it? We'll go some other direction. Is this something we all like as a committee?
So I'll be truthful, Scott, I only had it on my phone and the Google map wouldn't load up, so I haven't reviewed the map yet, but I will go take a look at it and see what it is. I think it was kind of similar to the spreadsheet that I was putting together. It's just breaks it up a lot more at the crossroads.
Yeah, because what you and I had talked about previously was that we needed to have the infrastructure broken down into segments, because no one's going to go after an entire road in this community because it would be too many millions of dollars. We're all going to go after little bits and segments of roads. And that's what this map did, was break it down into the segments by each block across the entire community, and then identify the length of it, the subdivision that it came from. We can then use it for the date. We can then, incorporate the water map to make sure we know which size water line is under each segment of the street. And then we apply the criteria that we were talking about just this meeting, and you eventually rate it all, and then you get to a point where you know what the prioritization of the streets are in the community. But that's kind of where I see us going, is trying to figure out, like you said, the criteria. And one of the criteria is it an arterial? Is it a local? Is it a collector? Is it a primary collector? Just what are the categories? And we have to come up with that criteria in order to have a fixed way of assessing the infrastructure that we currently have. And then how do we go forward and decide where we want to spend money to make the most impact to the community? So is this something that I should continue working on and trying to refine it and pick up the glitches? Because right now I know he picked up some of the bike trails, he picked up the ski trails. Well, we don't need to worry about those issues. And I need to get rid of that stuff. And there's a few roads that didn't get picked up, and high up on the hill there's some confusion about it, different things, and I can work on that. And my question, I guess, is this kind of a database something that we want to develop and that I'm willing and my son is willing to spend a few hours on this to get it done? Is that something that's beneficial for our committee?
I would say yes.
Yeah,
It's what I kind of had in mind with it. I tried pulling the same data, I didn't have any luck getting it out, but yes, I think this makes sense. I do think some of it we need to start taking a look at. There's other things like the Title VII stuff and things like that that we need to,
Right.
may need to rewrite so that then we can merge it in with this better.
I agree with you. And I read the definitions of arterial and collector, and, you know, the idea that, I can't, for some reason, I can't remember the name, the street going up the east side of the mountain, it was never going to be an arterial by the criteria that's in Title VII. It's just not gonna work. So we gotta get the criteria matching up with what the actual situation is. But this is what the spreadsheet that I sent out previously was, you know, just very simple. But yes, we need to come up with how we're gonna grade this stuff. And even if it's as simple as the spreadsheet I sent out previously, you'd be amazed at how it would determine exactly what we're looking at doing. Just in 5 or 6 different basic criteria, you could establish what is the best roads to go after. It doesn't have to have a zillion criteria because you will never get through all of it. You'll never be able to digest 100, you know, criteria. We only need the basic criteria that's going to make a determination as to where we want to spend money. Okay, I will work with him to try to refine this. He offered to help me show me how to edit the thing and try to pick up the glitches on it and make sure we get all the roads included and get the things that are not roads out of it. Because I knew Kurt would not be happy with a summary that said there's 160 miles because he knows it's not 160 miles. But when you start including all these other trails and things that Google picks up or the aerial imagery picked up, it adds up when you start running all the ski runs into your list, and we don't want those in there. And then I don't even know what to do with all of the roads that are behind the ski hill. You know, there's roads that are showing up on different maps, and I don't know if that's, I guess it's in the village. It's just a question of whether it's something the village has any responsibility for in the underlying data. But we can determine that once we get the data available to use. And I think I was just astounded what my son could do in an hour or two working with our artificial intelligence and the maps that we already have from Santos of what is out there. It would just blew my mind that he could get that spreadsheet put together of every single block in the entire community by the length of each street and all the other attributes that he was able to pull out of it, almost like magic in my mind. I mean, a few years ago, you would have spent Santos, you would have had Santos spending months and months trying to gather all that information. And here he gathered it up in an hour or two. Unreal. Okay, I will move forward with that a little more.
good work, Scott.
Thank you.
Anything else on the agenda?
Yeah, my batteries are almost all out, so I need to sign off.
Adjourn.
I second paper. Okay.
Aye.
See where you're.
You gotta approve of the meeting. All right.